Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we will be talking about Azure Container Instances. In short, we call it ACI. Azure Container Instance is a serverless service. Serverless doesn't mean that there is no server. Technically, there is server. Of course, without any server, without any computing, you cannot run your application workload. So the main point here is the responsibility, meaning that customers is abstracted from managing any underlying server. So the responsibility goes on the Azure, meaning that to run your application workload, all the underlying hardware resources, virtual machines, networking, everything else is going to be managed by the cloud provider. So in this case, Azure. So the customer's responsibility is to make sure the security of their application. You bring your code, you bring your Docker image, and you deploy your application to their serverless platform. So pricing is basically based on the resource consumption. Serverless computing, in short, there is no server for the customers. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how easy it is for you to deploy an application just like that in a serverless computing. So stay tuned, and if you're new to my channel, please do not forget to give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much for supporting. Let's get into the business. Let's go to the ACI container instance. Here I'm in portal.azure.com. In my previous video, I showed you how to do it from the portal and from CLI. Today I'm going to make it a little bit more interesting because I didn't touch everything when I created the instance. So today I plan to go through most of the things that you need to know to understand container instances. So first of all, I'm going to create a container instances. So when I go for this, I do not have any at this point for Azure. Tag with Azure, this resource group I'm going to create, and then I'm gonna call it tag with Azure still. We just need to name our container. Then region is going to be US East. I don't actually want to select it, so you can select zone 1, 2, or 3. There are 3 zones available in this region. So I put it none, so Azure is going to decide it for me. SKU is basically standard and confidential. This is very important to understand. So standard means standard container group providing Hyper-V level isolation. If you don't know what is Hyper-V, I'm going to let you know just in a second. Confidential is like a little bit more secured environment where in-memory data is going to be encrypted and hardware level isolation is provided to run your application workload. Here you have a nice documentation. Hyper-V isolation. I just want to show it to you where it is, but I'm going to give you a little bit of summary right here. So Hyper-V isolation, multiple container instances run concurrently on the same host, meaning that let's say if you have a Mac and on your Mac machine you have 10 containers running. Okay, so this is what it means. Each container runs inside of a highly optimized virtual machine, effectively gets its own kernel. Okay, so now you understand the standard and confidential. Confidential is going to give you in-memory encryption benefits and hardware level isolation from other container groups. And then you could go ahead Azure Container Registry, and in Azure Container Registry you can choose your repository. So in our previous video we already talked about it. So today we are going to go with this one, and I don't need really Spot. So here I'm okay with this. I don't need any GPU support. But the next thing we want to go through is the networking. If you go to the networking part, I'm going to say public. So public means it will create a public IP address for your container instance like we did yesterday. And then DNS name level. This is something I want to do tag with Azure. So my container instance is going to have a DNS name. Tenant I don't really want. I want it for the resource group so that I can really delete it right away. So in our previous session we had 8080 if you remember, and in the networking part the port was open which was 80, but if I wanted yesterday my container to work, I needed to add one more port. This is something I did not show you. I showed you in today's video. Okay, so port is going to be 80, which is fine absolutely. And if you need a 443, you can go ahead with 443. And the next thing we want to do is the advance. Pretty important to understand. The restart policy, if I click here, it tells you everything. So determines when your container should restart. So these are like conditions. Let's say if something goes wrong, you want to restart your container, right? So you can choose to always restart the container regardless of how it stopped. To only restart if it failed, to exit successfully, or to never restart. So there are a couple of options you have. You can say never, you can say always, and you can say on failure. So in this case, this is the default, and I also want to go with the default is because if the container for some reason on failure stopped, I want to do a restart and try to get the container up and running. The next thing I want to do, Microsoft manage keys. I don't want to manage keys by myself. I don't have any keys at this point, so I want to leave it as it is. The tags, there is nothing to do. You can say dev, and you want to say development. This is good to use for cost tracking purposes. So this is what all you need to know. If you have an image, let's say somewhere in GitLab container registry or GitHub, you can choose this one, other registry, and in this case you need to put the address in there, and you can also run Windows workload right there, you can see. So just to let you know, I will put the video link in the description, okay? And review and create, and in this case you can see tag with Voyager. We will have a DNS name today, and if you wanted to override any command you could do so. I don't have any at this point, so therefore I'm going to skip it. What happened with the tags? I can see two. Okay, this is correct. And let's go ahead and create it. Once the deployment goes through without any issues, we will be able to operation details. If you click here, it's going to give you a little bit more detailed information. I don't really need this. Deployment is not done yet. Okay, deployment got succeeded. So go to resource and it's going to take you straight there. So if I go to container, you can see I got the container name with tag with Azure. This is the image that it pulled to run in the container. Then status in running, previous state is nothing. If you have a failure state, then it's going to show up here. And how many times it got restarted? Currently is 0. And here it gives you pretty much detail, like it started container, it pulled the image, things like that. And you can change the time, like from local time to UTC. And if you go to properties, you get container related properties. So the specification for this container is this: CPU core, port, and the logs. You can see listening on port 80. And if you wanted to connect, let me try this, if this works. WebSocket is closed and could not be opened. Okay, it's not letting me do that, so that's absolutely fine. So what you could do next is basically this. If I go to overview, I'm going to see the fully qualified domain name tag with Azure, and it has this information, and you can copy. So welcome to Azure Container Instances. Remember, it doesn't give you HTTPS by default. So you get HTTP. You do not get HTTPS. Able to access the service still, either with the IP address or with the DNS. And if you wanted to stop your service, you could stop it. If you wanted to delete, you could delete. If you wanted to restart, you could restart. So you could just press the button to start it, and the status is going to be stopped. Okay, the container count, there is only one container. So this is what I wanted to show you today. If you like this content, give it a thumbs up. Thank you everyone. Bye bye.